Hello everyone, I'm Ryan Hayashi. Welcome to Hayashi Dojo in Mannheim, Germany. This is another karate video lesson for my students. The topic of this one is direct movement, directness. Okay, what this means is moving from A to B in as direct a way as possible without any unnecessary or superfluous movement where you're wasting your energy. I'll just show you what I mean, okay? So, in the first Bewego of the first kata Heian Shodan, we move in that direction in a Zenkutsugachi Gedan Barai, okay? Now, when you try to learn this from books, you see this picture, and the next picture you look at looks like this. But you don't know how he got there. Now, in my generation, trying to learn back in the 80s and 90s from photographs, or specifically for our style from Sensei Nakayama's Best Karate series, in those days we did not have YouTube. We had to get our hands on a VHS copy of one of the older videos to actually see this in movement. And the problem is, I think less nowadays because you can just watch hundreds of videos for every known kata on YouTube. But in my generation, you still had a lot of variations. Some people would just plant their foot and then do something like this. Other people would okay? Within our style of karate, we want to go from one position to the next with the most direct movement possible, meaning this. Okay? Now, I know if you look at different martial arts styles, you'll see different ways of moving, so I'll just give a little bit of a comparative. Let's take as an example Heian Nidan, our second kata, traditionally the first Pinan kata. We do it like this. Okay? Moving as directly as possible. If a Chinese Kung Fu stylist were to do the same sequence, which actually was my first style before I began Shotokan Karate in Mannheim. This sort of movement. Okay. Depending on your style. Then there's more emphasis on the fluid, continuous movement where they don't stop. So a Kung Fu stylist trying to do Heian Nidan would do something more like this. Okay, you get the idea. In Korean Taekwondo, they actually raise their hips and drop them into each movement. So a Taekwondo stylist would do something like this. I've actually seen it in old Tang Sudo. I've seen a variation of Pinan, this Pinan kata. Looks something like this. Raising and dropping the hips. In the Kyokushinkai style, and they have the same kata as well, they have this Pinan kata, they will they'll muscle their way through it. But it has to do with the influence of their past masters. Sensei Oyama, the founder of Kyokushinkai, the student of Gijin Funakoshi. For his generation, was massive. He was a heavily built man, did a lot of serious bodybuilding, and was very muscular if you look at videos and photos. So, they tend to muscle their way through the movements. A lot of hard tension. The Kung Fu would be one flow from the beginning of the form to the end. The Taekwondo would bounce. If there were a Nahate version of the same kata and ida, which there isn't, it would look more like this. Almost looks like seikai. Okay? But again, it has to do with the background of the gentleman who developed this style. Because they did a lot of conditioning and would beat on each other's bodies to the point they were hard and could take hits. It's seen in their katas that they would just stay rooted, grab the opponent, pull them in, and tear them apart. In our style, we want to move from A to B as directly as possible. Okay? This means a couple of things. It means turning down the muscular tension to the end of the movement. The way I generally try to get my students to feel this is to play this childhood game where someone lays their palms on yours and you try to slap their hands. As soon as they see you move, they try to pull away. Now, those who are good at this game intuitively already know how to move the way we do our kata within our style. Because they minimize three things. A change in the breathing patterns, which would telegraph something's coming. Excess muscular tension, which again would signal that something's coming. And even the eyes. This is something you have to be aware of, that the signal that here comes something. Those who are good at the game look calmly at you, and before the end of the thought, bam! It just flies out of nowhere. We try to get that feeling in our kata as well. Okay? Now, this brings us to the question of raising the hips. In our style, unless the technique specifically involves standing up, for example, in Heian Shodan, we try to maintain the hips moving along one line. Now this is because in Heian Shodan, every technique is moving across the floor. In our system, if you were to raise the hips, that's because you want to come down with the technique. If you were to lower the hips and come up, that would make sense. Otherwise, in the case of Heian Shodan, the hips should stay on one level. And then the other natural tendency for beginners is to move their feet first and then their hands. That's too late. When I was training at the JKA World Headquarters, Honbu Dojo, Sensei Osaka taught me that the leg must begin first, but the hand and foot end together. The reasoning behind that is I can do this 5 times very quickly. But the amount of time it takes me to change legs 5 times is much longer. So microscopically, the way they do it is to begin the legs moving where it wants to be, but to have the arm and leg movement ending together.